Welcome back, everyone, for Week 6 of From the Stands College Football Show. My name is Brian McCardle. And again, for the sixth week of the season, we have Andy Hopper and Tom Scavetta joining me. Andy, how's it going?
It's going great. Big game this weekend. Just secured my tickets today. Maybe the biggest home game for the University of Illinois in over a decade. Win and you're 5-1 and potentially ranked and you're in a firm position in the Big Ten West. Lose, well, I don't know. So it's not an option. But I'm feeling great. I'm glad to be here. Yeah, I feel good.
Yeah, it is a huge. They've already got you some of those juicy points in the rankings. So I gotta feel if a win
Six
comes, six of
six
them,
votes. Six votes, ladies and
six
gentlemen. Get
votes.
excited.
I gotta feel like if a win comes this weekend, you guys will slide in there. Tom, how's it going? You had a bye week last week. Now you're playing ranked BYU.
Yeah, bye week was good. Get some guys healthy on defense. Looking forward to this BYU game Saturday night. I see Brian kindly put it in our chaser for the night slate this week, so I'm excited to talk about that. And yeah, this week 5 recap is going to be very, very interesting, boys.
And we will very quickly recap week 5. And Tom, it is interesting. So we'll start with you. Which ones were the most interesting to you?
There was a lot of good games this week. There are a lot of really good games. I think you could argue the Georgia Missouri game was interesting. 4-point game. Nobody expected that. UCLA upsetting Washington 40-32. They led big, and then Washington almost came back. And then one other game that really stuck out to me was TCU just destroying Oklahoma 55-24. Max Duggan 3 touchdown passes, and their running back Kendre Miller has been outstanding on the year. So those are the 3 games that caught my eye the most. But man, what a performance by TCU! They just really knocked the socks off of Oklahoma and put themselves in the rankings. This is well deserved.
Yeah, it definitely was. Andy, which games for you were the most exciting?
I mean, I think you know where I'm going to go here. My team got a coach fired last week. When was the last time that happened? Illinois marches into Madison, absolutely dominates the Badgers. The Badgers move the ball pretty easily on their first drive to score a touchdown. So that kind of made you pull your collar a little bit, start sweating it out because it was a very much here we go again moment. But from the rest of the way, the Illinois defense just looked incredible. The offense was able to move the ball pretty well. Chase Brown still the #1 rusher in the FBS. He is going to be so good. Whoever takes a chance on him on Sundays. Tommy DeVito looked great. I mean, it's just more for me, just what the defense looked like. And then Wisconsin turns around and fires their head coach. Fire Paul Chryst after getting beat by Illinois. That's what Brett Bielema is wanting this program to do, is play at a high level, be ranked and compete for championships. And to this point of the season, it seems like they are on their way to potentially doing a few of those things. A couple other games that stood out for me, Baylor and Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State going into Waco and getting that win. I believe Kansas sneaking out a win over Iowa State. They're ranked now. They're in the AP top 25. First time since 2007, I want to say.
Something like that, yeah.
Quite a long time. They have
A while.
it's been quite a while. They have another sellout. They just sold out for their game this weekend. Oh, there was one other game I wanted to bring up. Oh, I got it right here, fellas. Sorry.
Go to the notes.
Sorry. Fuck. What was it?
Thinking of
Wake Forest. Wake Forest over Florida State. I was impressed with what they did on the road. Ole Miss sneaking out the win over Kentucky. And then shout out to Purdue for handling a ranked Minnesota team on the road. That's a huge win for Jeff Brom and the Boilermakers.
Yeah, you guys mentioned most. I mean, there was so many good games, and you pretty much got all of them. I told you guys, I think Sunday morning, I missed so many games because I was doing hurricane cleanup type stuff. But Yeah, obviously I went back and watched some of the replays. The Georgia game was just absolutely ridiculous. I think I said to Andy after the game that their kicker might have been the MVP of the entire week in all of college football. Um, I think he missed two the previous week in that awful loss to Auburn, which they could have won if they hadn't fumbled that touchdown in the end zone. But still, you don't want to be missing those. He just comes back, ice in his veins. He's bombing from 50 plus all through the uprights. Really gave Georgia a scare there. So that one was obviously really interesting. Clemson, I think I've dogged on them pretty much since week one this season. They've gotten it together. Big win over NC State. So I think they're a serious contender at this point moving forward, and I don't think I'll be shitting on them very much going forward because they looked really good in that game. Like you said, Ole Miss clutch win over Kentucky. That was a big one. And then the game that was supposed to be big, that was talked up all season, it's on our slate still. Texas A&M versus Alabama, but Texas A&M loses to Mississippi State 42-24. So the game that was supposed to be, the hype of all hype is now kind of going to be a dud. But it is what it is. Maybe Texas A&M and Jimbo can pull an upset and give us something juicy to come from it. But we'll move into our first segment of the week. We have Sittin' and Quittin'. This is a story focused around a little bit of transfer portal news here. We have 4 SMU players who have decided to call it quits on the season and will be sitting out the rest of the season in order to keep their redshirt eligibility so that they can enter the transfer portal. I want to know what you guys think about this because we've seen players sit before, but this is kind of a different flavor of it. Is it, I guess, from the perspective of the players and the coaches and the teams, do you think this is, a smart move? Is it a little bit scummy to quit on your team this early, only 4 weeks into the season? Tom, what's your take?
It's tough. I believe it was 2 DBs and 2 receivers, right?
Yeah.
So the thing is with the new NCAA rules, right, around these transfer windows and everything, players can't even enter the portal right now. They can't even enter until the season's done. I mean, I think we talked about this a few weeks ago, right, when they made those new rules.
Yeah.
So I think it's both, right? You want to enhance your resume for NFL draft possibility, especially I believe one of the players was very active on the roster. He was one of the key players for the team. It does suck though when you quit on the team midway after playing significant reps. It's not a good look for you, and I'm sure NFL teams will keep notes of that because there's guys who get picked every year who are on bad college football teams, right? So it's kind of an interesting situation that I think has multiple angles you could take. I'm more of the one to not quit and continue to play things out. But if these guys feel that their reasoning is to boost their NFL draft resume, then I think it could be somewhat justified. But overall, I mean, we don't know what goes on behind closed doors, right? This could be a multitude of things we don't even know about. So, one can only speculate.
All right. Andy, what are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I know that the transfer portal and transferring and going off to greener pastures, finding a place that you think you might have a better chance to succeed. I have no problem with that. I like the transfer portal. I don't necessarily love this. I think it creates a weird dynamic, obviously between these guys and the coaching staff, between these guys and, do you even call them their teammates still, their former teammates, soon to be. So, kind of weird, pretty ballsy move by them. So I'll tip my cap to him. So it's sophomore safety Isaiah Nwokobia, veteran defensive back Chase Cromartie, receivers Roderick Daniels Jr. and Jaylene Record. So Nwokobia has played a ton of major snaps so far. He was the second highest rated player in the Mustangs 2021 recruiting class. Cromartie started 17 games over the past 2 seasons, kind of fallen off on the depth chart, fallen a little bit lower, hasn't been seeing as much playing time. Daniels only has 2 catches as a sophomore after just being a rotational guy as a freshman, and Record really doesn't play too much. So that, obviously on the surface, that seems to be the reasoning for some of these guys wanting to leave, maybe just seeing some more time on the field. I don't know. I don't love it though, but I do. I wish everybody the best. I don't. If you're not happy in a situation, I don't think you should have to stay there. But I think it is just quite a move to just kind of be like, all right, yeah, I'm sitting out for the rest of the year. By the way, yeah, I'm transferring too.
Yeah, this is such an odd one. I feel like we talk, or at least have been talking for the
Mhm.
first 6 weeks of this season ad nauseum about, all this transfer portal and NIL stuff. But I think, I think every single topic that we've talked about has been a different niche of the transfer portal because these players are still sort of, finding out these, I don't want to call them loopholes, but like new methods to utilize, like ways to take advantage of it in their behalf. So, um, yeah, I think this is still just part of the growing pains of, figuring out how the transfer portal is going to evolve. And, I don't want to say a lot of this is because of NIL for the younger guys that are doing this. This is actually really interesting reading the article because I think all four of these players are in like an entirely different scenario. Andy, you were listing out like the kind of playing times and like the age differences of all these players. I think every single one of them somehow is going to come out of this with a different reason for why they did it. So I think, and like Tom said, we can't really say if it's justified or not without knowing all the facts before us. But it's like Roderick Daniels, for instance. Andy, you were giving off his stats, but he's just got 2 catches this year, not as much time. And last year, I think that's a disappointment for him because of last year where he was forced into, playing a lot of time when they were down receivers. So yeah, he got the playing time, he got all the yardage, but now everyone's healthy, the receiver room's all there, and he's not getting the playing time that he wanted. So he burned a redshirt year last year to help the team. Now he's not getting any looks. So I can understand from that standpoint, why he would want to move on from the team if you're not getting any time. And then in Cromartie's case, he's played every single game for SMU since 2019 as a freshman. Not playing now because, lo and behold, SMU brought in other guys in his position at safety via the transfer portal. So, it's a little bit of you give some and you get some back for SMU there. They're going to lose a guy that's played a lot of snaps for them because they went out and got other guys. So I think this is maybe going to sound a little bad or a little judgmental. I don't. I think all these guys are in the right to do what they did, but I think if you do this to your team, the second you decide that you're going to sit and enter the transfer portal, that they should lose scholarship for the rest of the year. I mean, maybe that's a little harsh, but I don't think it's the team's job to like sit there and babysit these kids, who said that they're going to play all
Mhm.
year. This isn't a coaching change scenario, right? I've been sympathetic of those guys, for the last couple seasons since they brought in these new transfer portal rules. This isn't a coaching change. This is just I'm not playing. I want to sit. So to me, I'm fine with all this, but I think you lose all your player privileges that come with getting that scholarship moving forward. Then moving into our next segment, we have Misery Loves Company. ESPN announced that the Georgia Missouri game was the second most watched game on all their streaming platforms since they've launched those, only behind the 7 overtime classic between LSU and Texas A&M. And I want to know what you guys think about why so many people tuned in to this game to watch number one Georgia struggle against Missouri. A little bit of a struggle bus game, but why do you guys think people like tuning into these potential upsets the most? Is it more of if your team had a shitty day, you want to watch someone else do shitty? Is it because it's just such a shocking thing to watch? One of those like a car crash. You can't look away. Tom, what are your thoughts?
Um, to me, it's just you love to see Cinderella's upset, right? I'm not saying Missouri's a Cinderella type of team. They play in the SEC. Um, but for me, for me at least, it had nothing to do with my team because my team didn't even play last week. But I think when you look at Georgia with how dominant they've been over the past several years now, um, a lot of people are betting on them to go back to back. So the fact that Missouri was able to keep this close, of course, that's going to draw people in, especially now with all the sports betting going on. People are going to take note of this. People are going to tune in. They're more inclined to watch. Um, I just think it has to do with, hey, if Georgia loses to this opponent, like, what does that mean? What does that mean for the SEC? What does that mean for the college football playoff? For me, it has nothing to do with trying to watch another good team lose if my team had a bad day, because I know my team is out of the running already. But let's say if I was a team like Alabama, of course I want Georgia to lose because of that reason. Um, but yeah, no, for me, it's just hell. Why not? Let's have chaos, right? What was the theme last year that we used on the show? The year of parody, right? Last year
Yep.
was parody year, something like that. We got a G5 team in the college football playoff. So unfortunately, it was at the expense of the choking hazard on my chest. But hey, that's all I've got for on that. Let me stop before I start digging my own grave there with the Notre Dame comments. But yeah, that's how I feel about that.
All right, Andy, what's your take on this one?
Yeah, dude. I mean, I think America, especially people in general, they like a good underdog story. They like the David versus Goliath. It's just more fun to root for the underdog sometimes. Well, actually, that's not always true. It's definitely more fun to root for a team like Georgia. It's just gonna win 90%. But I think Tom brought up a great point. Sports betting, dude. I am a degenerate gambler. There had to be so many people out there that were just watching that line and live betting that game. Like, I'm sure they were watching a different game, and then you're checking scores and you see, holy fuck, Missouri's up. What was it, 26-24 at some point, I think. Whatever. Missouri's up. Let me go check the line. Oh, they're still plus 300 or whatever, and there's this amount of time left. Like, they have a chance to win this. I'm guessing people tuned in because they threw down some bets, whether it was on Georgia or whether it was on Missouri. I think that had something to do with it. I also think, yeah, being a fan of a rival team or another team in the top 5 or the top 10, and you see the number 1 team struggling, you're thinking, oh man, yeah, let's hope this other team pulls it out and we're going to move up in the rankings. I think a lot of things go into it, and just how polarizing this Georgia team has been. The last season, obviously, with the national championship, the hype still around the program now. I think that has something to do with it. Yeah, but I think it's a mixture of quite a few different things. Seeing a nice upset. I mean, upsets in college football they're the best. Like, they're unparalleled. And I mean, in sports in general. I just think everybody loves seeing a good upset. I'm sure people were losing their minds, sweating out some bets as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think all reasons for people tuning in are kind of valid. Um, for me personally, though, the number one thing has to be the shock value is the leading culprit here, because
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty much from the only like major metro area in Florida that doesn't have like a huge traditional college football school. Nothing like no ingrained college football team, like no culture or anything. Um, neither of my parents went to like the big three, or big four if you want to include UCF. Just shadow my own school there. But like none of they didn't go to like Florida, FSU, Miami, so it wasn't like where the parents are trying to get you to follow the way like Darth Vader style or anything. Um, so I've always had like this chaotic neutrality that I've been able to use because I only went to a smaller school in UCF, but until I even went to college, I just had no real team to root for. So
Hmm.
you kind of want to see the Cinderellas, like you guys were saying, because they're so interesting. Um, almost like March Madness. Andy, you said that college football upsets are unparalleled, but I would say March Madness is probably like the same thing. These teams that are, you never expect to win against these absolute giants, these behemoth blue blood programs. It's just so much fun to watch. I had so much fun watching, Middle Tennessee beat the shit out of Miami the other week. That was just a fun one because everyone here loves to hate on Miami. So yeah, I love the chaotic factor that's going on, and to me, I love like the teams like your Michigans, for example, that they've been around for so long, and these kids are like ride or die since they're babies. They've had like the kids' clothes that everyone's giving them at the baby shower. It says like beat Michigan or beat Ohio State, all that rivalry stuff starting very early. And I love the thought of like them going home disappointed as they lose to like an FCS school. To me, that just makes me so happy. So yeah, for me, it's definitely the chaos that it causes. But I think the car crash aspect also plays a point where, like you said, people just want
Yeah.
to tune in to see what's going on, like to be, I don't want to say be part of history, but see something that interesting. That'll wrap up our segments for the week, and it'll move us into our games of the week, our shots and chasers, your roadmap to game day. First game on the slate, Rock Chalk, baby. We have Kansas taking on TCU. This is a ranked matchup. College game day is in Lawrence, Kansas for the first time in school history. This is going to be a great matchup. Andy, we'll start with you on this one. Two undefeated teams here in the Big 12. Huge matchup. Who's going to take it?
I got to ride with the Jayhawks here. I was very impressed by TCU last week and just the absolute ass whooping they put on Oklahoma. I thought Max Duggan was really impressive. He was able to get loose, I think, for 60-plus yard rushing touchdown. So Kansas's defense is going to have to be able to contain that. I'm going to be really excited to see what Jalen Daniels is going to do for them as well. They've even been putting in Jason Bean, the backup, on the field at the same time as Daniels. So the Jayhawks have been having a lot of fun on offense. My concern is defensively. Can they contain the Horned Frogs? I think the stadium is going to be rocking. It's another sellout. This is a ranked top 25 matchup in Lawrence, Kansas. Like you said, college game day. And no, it's not for the basketball team. It is for the football team, folks. The Jayhawks' magical season continues this week. They gained bowl eligibility this week, folks. The Jayhawks are going to be 6-0 after Saturday. Jalen Daniels, the last time I predicted, I think I said 300 plus, 100 on the ground and a rushing touchdown. I'm pretty sure he did that. So why not run it back, Jalen, huh? For the boys. Let's go. Rock Chalk.
Check, and check Jalen Daniels. Tom, are the Jayhawks getting bowl eligible this week?
Well, if I can build up to that, if that's okay.
Go for it.
Look, shout out to Game Day being in Lawrence, Kansas this week. Absolutely incredible. I believe we learned that on Sunday, so that was absolutely insane. A 4-0 TCU against the 5-0 Kansas. Let's keep in mind, though, TCU is favored by 7 in this game by a full touchdown on the road. I think that should carry some weight. But I do like what Jalen Daniels brings to the table. Outstanding start to the season. And Neal's a great running back, too. But remember what I mentioned before the show, or not before the show, before this segment. Max Duggan, 11 touchdowns, no picks. Man hasn't thrown an interception all season, and he is a gunslinger. On top of it, their running back, Miller, averages 7 yards per carry. The offense averages 549 total yards of offense per game. They just blew out the Sooners 55-24. If they blow out Oklahoma 55-24, the party's over in Lawrence. TCU's winning this game. Give me the Horned Frogs.
Oh, Tom, I hate it. I hate it. You just put a bad taste in my mouth. Listen, this is a game where I throw all stats aside because I just told you I'm a chaotic neutral, and Kansas being ranked undefeated, game day in Lawrence. This is just a huge moment for their program. They've come from the bottom, the depths of college football over the last couple of years. They have been hot garbage, and they finally have a chance to be something. But yeah, I'm like you guys both said, eyes are going to be on Max Duggan. And if I can pull a Tom here, Max Duggan has been a chugging along this season. He's had a 65% completion percentage or better in every single game so far, and 3 of those 4 games have come with at least 3 touchdowns. Andy, you made fun of my ratios last week, but you gotta love Duggan's ratio. Those 0 interceptions, just a goose egg on the stat sheet there. And like you said, TCU beat Oklahoma last week with relative ease, almost 700 yards of offense. I think it was like 690 or something. Um, the biggest thing that Oklahoma fans can point to as an excuse is that Dylan Gabriel got injured. He's on the offense. That doesn't really do anything to stop the 700 yards of offense that you allowed. So, yeah, that TCU offense, it can move. It can move. But listen, both teams are in the top 15 in the nation in points per game. So, Kansas isn't too far behind TCU in the case of offensive power going on here. So, I I think this is such an even game, and I have to give the edge to Kansas because of this Cinderella story going on. I did take a look at the defenses, and nothing special on either side, but they're so equal across the board. Points allowed per game, 22 and 24. Pass yards allowed, 248, 269. Rushing yards allowed, 120, 115. So, these two teams stack up really well against each other. And I don't want to say we're going to see a shootout here, but I think Kansas has a slight edge on defense. And I'm just hoping, I'm praying that it can overcome Max Duggan and the wide range of offensive power that Duggan brings to that offense and that massive 500 yards per game that they have. So I'm sticking with the Jayhawks here as well. I think they get a win on College Game Day in Lawrence. And then we'll move on to our chaser. We have Oklahoma versus Texas. This was another one that's supposed to be such a good game, and it's kind of going to be a dud, a little bit of a stinker. Andy, who wins the stinker?
Is Gabriel playing?
So both QBs actually are day-to-day.
Love it. Man, I mean, there's no way Oklahoma can play worse than they did last week, right? I don't know. Their defense is a problem. I think. I mean, I've liked the way Texas has looked so far this season. I think all things considered, they're good on offense. I think the question for them also is defensively. I mean, this is two back-to-back Big 12 matchups, so I guess we really shouldn't be expecting too many stops here. I'm gonna go. Red River rivalry. Oh, fuck. I'm going to go Texas here. I'm going to go Texas. Oklahoma, 3-game losing streak.
All right, Tom.
I mean, you guys know a few weeks ago, I shamelessly picked the Sooners to make the college football playoff this year, and now that has gone down the drain. Texas is favored by 7 at home. It's Hudson Card against Dylan Gabriel, who I will say, Gabriel has looked really good this year, Brian. Not a single pick throughout all the turmoil that the Sooners have gone through. But here's the problem. Who's going to stop Bijan Robinson on the ground? Man has 8 touchdowns already this season. Xavier Worthy is worthy of double coverage on Saturday. The guy has 3 touchdowns. Jatavian Sanders, outstanding red zone tight end. Who's going to defend that? He's a nightmare. And you want to talk about who Oklahoma has. Marvin Mims is still a great weapon for them. Braden Willis, the tight end, has 4 touchdowns. And I like Reggie Grimes on defense for them with 4 sacks. There's going to be a lot of pressure on him in that war of the trenches between the Longhorns O-line and the Sooners D-line to see if Bijan Robinson can be contained. If the Sooners can contain Bijan Robinson, they have a chance, but they're on the road here, gents, and I don't care if it's Hudson Card. Even if Quinn Ewers was back, this would be a much easier. Even though it's Hudson Card, I still have to roll with the Longhorns here, unfortunately.
An unfortunate pick. But yeah, my favorite stat about this one that was brought up, I think, by CBS Sports was that there's 4 Big 12 conference matchups this week, and only one of them is a matchup between 2 unranked teams, and it's the Red River Showdown. So just kind of a complete embarrassment. And just shows, the failure already of both these team seasons. I know that sounds, harsh to say this early, but it's true. But Texas was, we thought coming back at the beginning of the season with a good game against Alabama. Oklahoma They get Brent Venables in to head coach, and you get Dylan Gabriel as transfer QB. I mean, I've seen him firsthand. It's a fantastic pickup, probably the second best transfer QB pickup behind Caleb Williams, who went from Oklahoma to USC. So they got a good one there to replace him.
Tommy DeVito.
We'll throw Tommy DeVito at a tie for second. I'll throw him in there. But yeah, this game has been wild the last few seasons, and almost a coin flip. I mean, I feel like both of the last 2 seasons, there's been an evident better team, but once they met each other, it just everything. Throw the papers in the air. You don't know what's going to happen. I think the 2021 and 2020 matchups both went for over 90 points. I think last year's was over 100. It was like 58 to 45 or something. I know we laugh about the Big 12's defenses, but 100 plus points in a matchup like this, a rivalry matchup like this, is kind of absurd. So I think we probably see that again, despite the fact that both starting QBs might not be in the mix here. Tom, do you have information that we don't on Dylan Gabriel? You said we would be seeing him. So I'll ask really quick before I embarrass myself. Do you have word that Gabriel's playing?
Actually, I didn't look too much into that. I know there's been questions about that throughout the course of the week. I'm trying to see what Brent Venables said specifically, but I heard that there might be a roulette type of thing used against the Longhorns, like what Notre Dame did against Cincinnati last year, where we decided to put 3 QBs in the game. I think, again, I don't have any confirmed information, Brian, because it's only Wednesday evening.
Right.
But I would imagine that he's starting, but I'd expect to see other QBs under center as well if what Brent Venables said is true.
Okay, I just had to double check there because, like you said,
Yeah.
we're filming earlier than usual, so
Yeah.
even when coaches are tight-lipped, we're still so early in the week that I don't
Yeah.
think anyone really knows. So I had to check,
Yeah.
but I still think Hudson Card, while not at Ewers level, is still playing pretty well. So I think he's a fine replacement, and if he goes up against Gabriel, I think we see another 90, at least 80-point shootout here. And then in the scenario where we don't see either, this turns into a run-heavy affair. And you guys already talked about him. Bijan Robinson is the star of the show if that happens. So, he's an absolute veteran who grinds on the ground. He's already averaging over 100 yards per game on the ground this year, and he's almost averaging 2 rushing touchdowns per game. I think it's like 1.8. So if this turns into a rushing battle, I think Texas is just going to destroy Oklahoma here. And surprisingly, I am also going to take the Longhorns in this game. So never thought I'd pick them because I'm usually a horns down type of guy, but it is what it is. Then moving into 3:30, we have UCLA versus Utah, a ranked matchup. We haven't really talked about UCLA much this season, but they are undefeated. This is at UCLA. Andy, we'll start with you again on this one. Who takes it?
I was pleasantly surprised by UCLA this past weekend when they got that big win over Washington, even though I did have a Washington bet. They don't always work out. But I think DTR, he's been there what feels like forever now, has looked really good to start the season. But I am all in on these Utah Utes and Cam Rising. I think what he's been able to do is really impressive. I know the Utes are going to be missing Tom's favorite, Kuthi, the tight end, for the rest of the year, unfortunately. But I still like their chances here. I know UCLA's they have looked pretty good so far this year. I know they're ranked now in the 18 spot, but I'm still not 100% sold on them. I'm going to take Utah here. I think they're the better team. I think they march into LA, and I think they take the win.
All right, Tom.
Let's get this straight. UCLA put on a scoring clinic last week against Washington. Shout out to the Big Brother cast for attending this game. Reality TV show. It was pretty cool to see them on IG in the seats there with the student section. That was kind of fun. Anyway, I really like Cam Rising. You guys know that. He's been a diamond in the rough for quite some time. And yes, Andy, they did lose Brant Cuthie to a season-ending injury, but they still have tight end Dalton Kincaid, who has 5 touchdown receptions on the season. So Dalton Kincaid is my player to watch in this game for the Utes. Not to mention, the Utes defense has only given up 14.5 points per game. Now let's translate that to the UCLA side of the ball. The Bruins have scored 40-plus points in 4 of their first 5 games this season. That is a lot of points because of QB, Dorian Thompson-Robinson, outstanding young talent. Zach Charbonnet, 5 touchdowns. We saw what he did last week against Washington. And defensively, Laiatu Latu with 6 sacks. So they have guys all across the board that can be game changers. The problem here is I like this Utah defense. The Bruins have not run into a defense like the Utes yet. And even though the Utes are on the board, notice they're still favored by 3.5 points. There's a reason why, and that's why I'm taking Utah.
Andy, you tested Tom's tight end knowledge there, and he came at us with a player to watch in the backup tight end. Had to know it was coming.
Tom's a wild card. You never know what you're going to get out of this guy.
These random things, right? Just random things come out of my mouth sometimes that you don't expect.
Yeah, so UCLA somehow is one of the last 2 remaining undefeated teams in the Pac-12 alongside USC. And somehow I've just faded watching all their games this season. I don't know if it's just because of who they've been playing. I guess this last week would have been the week to watch. And like I said, I missed most of the games. So, I probably, missed a good one to sort of validate the talent that's going on here based on their undefeated streak so far. But in terms of a matchup, we got yet another matchup this week that's both teams in the top 15 in points per game. There's only 12 teams scoring over 50 per game. These are 2 of them. But in this case, Utah also has a top 15 ranked defense, and it'll be the toughest defense that UCLA has faced so far. So it's going to be a very big test for Dorian Thompson-Robinson. We talked about Cam Rising many times in past shows. You guys just talked about him earlier here. But I don't even think his talent needs to be justified any further in a game like this. We all know how good he is. He's going to be the top piece here for the Utes. But in a game like this, especially in the Pac-12, I would tend to give a home field advantage pick here. Say, all right, it's 3.5 point game. Home team probably going to edge them out. The crowd's going to be there. But UCLA does not have a crowd, quite literally. They have shown pictures of every single home game at UCLA, and they struggle to get in what looks like maybe less than 2,000 people per game. And that's just... I feel so bad for the players, especially, they're on this undefeated run. Chip Kelly's getting things together. No one's showing up. So the edge that a team would typically have with that fan base getting loud behind you is not going to be there. So I think because of the superior defense of Utah and the lack of pressure of having basically no opposing crowd there to jeer against you or, to get loud when you're trying to get an important play call in, I think Utah is going to take this one, and UCLA's undefeated season is going to end. Then moving into our chaser for 3:30, we have 2 of our darling teams from last year, UTSA taking on Western Kentucky. Andy, no Bailey Zappi. Can Western Kentucky get it done this year without him?
Shout out to Bailey making his first NFL appearance with the Patriots and taking the Packers down to the wire at Lambeau. Yeah. Good for Bailey Zappi. Hope Brian Hoyer's okay. As far as this game goes, you look at UTSA, they still have their quarterback from last year. Frank Harris has been awesome for the Roadrunners the past 2 seasons. He's also still got one of his favorite targets back from last year in Josh Cephas. UTSA brought a lot back, been, I don't think they are as good as they were last year. I think Western Kentucky also lost a lot of guys, lost a couple pieces offensively, but it's still that same offense. I see this as an absolute shootout. You just bet the over blindly in every Western Kentucky game and don't ask any questions. I'm going to take UTSA here though. I can't quit the Roadrunners, but this is tough. This is tough for me because I love to bet on both of these teams.
All right, Tom.
The Roadrunners, Harris is a good quarterback. He's nothing special, but he's not bad. You can win games with him. I like Brady, good running back. Clark, beast at receiver, over 550 yards and 6 TDs. I mean, each team averages 500 yards of total offense. You look at the Hilltoppers. Reed has nearly 1,700 passing yards, 17 touchdowns. Davis has 4 touchdown receptions. Here's the difference, though. The Hilltoppers have slightly the better defense. And that is why I'm taking the Hilltoppers to top the Roadrunners here as an upset.
Yeah, so I mean, the obvious miss here is Bailey Zappi being gone. He's breaking records left and right for them. But replacement Austin Reed hasn't been that bad for them so far. He's averaging over 350 yards a game and 17 touchdowns already. So, he's not going to be a Zappy for you yet, at least. But he's getting the job done for the Hilltoppers. My concern here, Tom, you said the defense is only slightly worse, but UTSA is outside of the top 100 in both points allowed at 34 per game and passing yards allowed, which is not something you want to do when the new quarterback has already adjusted to the offense so well and is throwing for over 350 yards per game in Mr. Austin Reed. So Andy kind of took the words right out of my mouth about how this one is going to go in terms of a shootout. Because I wrote down that this is probably just going to be a last possession type game. Wouldn't be surprised to see about 100 points scored in this game. I think it's going to be super sloppy on defense on both sides. Obviously, more so with UTSA, as I just pointed out. And then you pair that with both of these teams average over 500 yards of offense per game. Only 10 other teams in the country do that. So, I mean, I don't think 100 points is out of the question here. But because of the worst offense of UTSA, I'm going with Western Kentucky here. Then moving into our night games, we have Alabama taking on Texas A&M. Talked about it earlier. Man, the hype, it's gone for me at least. Is it gone for you guys? Andy, we'll start with you. Who's taking this one, and what's the hype level for you here?
Nah, this feels like another SEC game that Alabama's just going to come into and dominate. The shine has kind of been lost for me from Texas A&M, whether it was the cringy yell leader videos or actually just their not so great or not up to expectation performances on the field so far this season. I mean, we talked about it at the beginning of the show, but Mississippi State, did whatever they wanted offensively in that last game, and the Texas A&M offense has had trouble keeping up, like not only in that game, but so far this season. We just saw what Alabama did to a ranked Arkansas team on the road, winning that game by 23 points. I don't see any reason why they don't do the same thing to Texas A&M this time around, especially after last year. Saban has been thinking about that game all goddamn summer, all offseason. He wants to beat the shit out of Jimbo Fisher and the Aggies on Saturday, and I see no reason why they aren't going to. I think Gibbs has a big game on the ground. I think Young leads them to victory. I don't think it's close at any point on Saturday.
At any point, oh man.
I don't. I just don't. Like, I do think they made the right move going to Max Johnson at quarterback, but I mean, what has their offense done that has impressed you?
Yeah, not much. Not much. Tom, are the Aggies getting blown out here?
Well, Andy just said, what have the Aggies done that has impressed you, Brian? I'll ask you the same question. What have they done that has impressed you? If we're sitting here week 6 now and still have to ask this question, um, I don't know. But let's look at the positive side for this Aggies team for just 1 second. They own home wins against Miami and Arkansas, right? Miami originally ranked, Arkansas still a ranked team, but they lost to Mississippi State last week, so that hinders them a little bit. When I turn my focus to Alabama, I think 24 points is a little bit too much here. I don't know if I'm going to go as far to say it's going to be an absolute blowout. I wouldn't be shocked if it is, but again, Bryce Young did get injured last week. I don't know, I'm sure he's going to play, but we don't know, is he going to be fully 100%? Then that means they could rely on Gibbs and McClellan a little bit more. Only issue with that is that they both average 7 yards per carry. So how are the Aggies going to stop that? Hell, they average 530 yards of offense per game. And then on the defensive side of the ball, it doesn't get any easier, especially if this offense hasn't impressed you against lackluster defenses. Try going up against Will Anderson Jr. Try going up against cornerback Kool-Aid McKinstry. I mean, a very underrated corner, by the way, with an awesome name and 7 passes defended on the season. I like the Kool-Aid here, and I like the Alabama Crimson Tide by a lot.
Yeah, I like how the spread is here because, I mean, I'll just give my pick straight up front. I love Alabama easily to win here, but I also love plus 24 for Texas A&M. Even though I do think they'll get dominated, that's just so many points in a matchup like this. I think Texas A&M is still gonna, make it a grind and make them work for it. Bryce Young still day to day, but listen, over the spring, I tried to be, that guy, the X's and O's guy who gets into the spring games, because ESPN was airing all of them on television. I watched the Alabama one with Jalen Milroe getting some playing time, and my notes that I wrote down for him was, this kid is no joke. If Bryce Young gets hurt, Alabama will be fine. So that was my note on Milroe. His talent, it's still raw, but he's exceptional. So if he does have to play here for a full game, I think he'll be entirely fine. He did show, a tiny bit of inexperience. He tried to, maybe it's just, little spring game ego going on, but he tried throwing off his back foot while trying to evade pressure through an easy interception, which I'm sure Saban wasn't, happy about. But listen, Saban's the type of guy where after you make that play, he chews your ear off and you probably don't make it again ever. So regardless of who's at QB here, I think they're entirely fine in that aspect. Alabama finally gave the ball last week to Jahmyr Gibbs more than 10 times. I've been waiting for that all season. He's probably the most hyped up running back transfer of the season, and he had a monster day against Arkansas. 206 yards and 2 touchdowns on just 18 carries, one of which was an absolutely monster 76-yard run. So, he only averaged a mere 11.6 yards per rush against the Hogs, who are known for having a pretty good D-line. So he just diced them up, and I think he'll do the exact same to Texas A&M. And then on the receiving side of the ball, Alabama has 6 guys with over 10 catches or more already this season. They run so deep in the wide receiver game, as they do pretty much every year, and that's going to spread Texas A&M secondary really thin, because when you trust all your guys equally like that, you can just pick out the weakest link. There's the guy that's screwing up today. We're going after him, and you just grind that CB into the ground all day long. So I think there's just too much here for Alabama, and Texas A&M has showed way too many holes. Last week's loss was not a great look for Texas A&M and that defense. Now they just have to go up against an even better offense this week. So I don't think it spells out anything good here for the Aggies, and I think Texas A&M wins this one easily. And then, Tom, like you said, I squeezed in Notre Dame for you this week in the 7:30 Chaser slot. You're taking on ranked BYU. It is the Mormons versus the Catholics. The Mormons are ranked. I'll start with you on this one because this is your team. Who's winning it?
Well, I guess we got a lot of religion going on here for this last game. Notre Dame's favored by 3.5. at home, despite being 2-2. BYU comes in 16th overall in the nation at 4. And Notre Dame has a tough task. There's Jaron Hall, good quarterback. Chris Brooks, 6 yards per carry on the ground. That'll be interesting watching him go up against Isaiah Foskey and Howard Cross III and Riley Mills. Those guys have improved a lot over the past year. BYU has a good receiver in Hill. I like him a lot. The dude's averaging over 20 yards per catch. Notre Dame has been somewhat exposed in the secondary, last couple of weeks. I like their linebacker, the Cougars, in Ben Bywater. And I also think BYU has a solid pass defense. They own a win at home against Baylor in double overtime. But here's my problem. They lost at Oregon 41-20. You can't lose at Oregon by 3 possessions and tell me you're going to come into Notre Dame and, knock this team around. It's not going to happen. Let's look at Notre Dame now, right? Tyler Buchner, first couple of weeks, wasn't great. Young kid. A lot of criticism, well-deserved, but at the same time, was it entirely his fault? No. Drew Pine, though, once he was installed into this offense, the life has gone up substantially. 6 touchdowns, 1 pick. Esteem, all of a sudden, is the number 1 back with 4 touchdowns. Mike Mayer, the focal point of this offense, that is a security blanket that is huge. How is BYU going to match up with Mike Mayer? I'm not so sure. My problem with Notre Dame in this game, to be unbiased, are Lorenzo Styles and Braden Lindsey going to step up and be those complementary pieces that they need to be. Not to mention, Notre Dame defensively also needs a lot more out of graduate transfer Brandon Joseph from Northwestern, former Big Ten player. He's playing like a Sun Belt player. No offense to the Sun Belt, but
wow, catching strays in the Sun Belt.
The Sun Belt has a win over Notre Dame this year.
I'm just saying. Well, no, that's my point. Notre Dame's defense has been playing like a Sun Belt defense, if that makes sense. My pick here is Notre Dame, obviously, but it's going to be a close game. I think Notre Dame is starting to get things right in the right direction, and I just have to consider that Notre Dame has had 2 weeks to think about this game, and that carries weight into my decision to pick the Irish here.
Well, Tom, I'm going to throw a quick wrench into your pick there. This game is actually not at Notre Dame. This is the
neutral game.
Yeah, I can't remember what they call it, like the Luck of the Irish something game. It's in Allegiant Stadium in Las Vegas.
Right.
Does that change your pick here?
Well, now that you mention that, it's funny because I think Notre Dame's played in the West Coast in the past in neutral games, not bowl games actually, but geographically it is closer to BYU. I'm going to give them that. I mean, I can't go back to my pick here. Yeah, I mean, if that's what you're trying to do here, I love you, man, but it's not going to work.
I had to make it a little bit spicier to see what you would do there.
Look, the spice is very high right now. Wow. I'm going to stick with Notre Dame. I mean, look, I'm a fan. I have to believe in this team. And also keep in mind what I said. The extra week off to prepare for this is huge, especially with the young team.
All right, Andy, you riding with the Irish here or going with the Mormons?
So I think Tom brought up a really interesting point that I had kind of slipped my mind. Is just how the Oregon Ducks really manhandled this BYU team. I mean, you're looking at the Cougars. They are, I think 16th in the country right now. You're technically playing an unranked Notre Dame team. What Notre Dame does have going for them, I know this is not a home game, but with it being the Shamrock Series, that's when they pull out their super dope alternate uniforms. So they got some special, like all white and gold uniforms that they're wearing this week that, me being as dumb as I am, that is enough to sway me, a uniform looking cool enough. I think Spread's 3.5. I think BYU keeps it close. I think this is a last possession type of game. This is who has the ball last wins this game. I am interested to see how Drew Pine holds up. I think Jaron Hall is the better quarterback in this matchup. But I think Notre Dame has every opportunity to win this game. I'm also thinking back to when they announced that it would be at Allegiant Stadium, and they got Mike Golick and Mike Golick Jr. to do the hangover scene with them to promote the uniforms. So I'm going Notre Dame here. The Irish, is it an upset? I think it technically be, well, no, they're favored, so I guess not. But the Irish take out BYU.
I'm sorry, they're favored, but the way the projections has it, a team can be favored sometimes, but ESPN gives them less of a percentage to win than the other team. You guys ever notice that?
Yeah, they run some like weird personal
Weird
like
system.
FPI thing that they do. They think they're special with it with their own little system. Yeah, Andy, you're not dumb for the uniform thing. I called out the color rush a few weeks ago, so it's a very common strategy to pick with or against certain uniforms. But yeah, as far as the game itself goes, like I said, it's in Sin City, just about the last place I'd expect to see a game scheduled between the Mormons and the Catholics. But I guess if you're a coach, that's kind of good for you because you don't have to worry about your players getting distracted with all those things that go on in Las Vegas other than football at Allegiant Stadium. So, yeah, Tom, I told you 2 weeks in advance that your offense was going to absolutely slay UNC's defense. The 2 week advance was not because I was, pulling some sort of Nostradamus thing. It's because I had your schedule mixed up. You were playing Cal that week. I thought you were playing UNC. But it still did happen. You dropped 45 points on the Tar Heels. So hopefully that gets your offense, gets the mojo going a little bit. Because that's been, to me at least, that looks like the more sluggish side of the ball for you guys. Yeah, on the other side for BYU, Jaron Hall, he's been doing great for the Cougars, and his stats show it. The one thing that I found that I'm slightly concerned with here in this game is how BYU is, or I guess isn't wanting to utilize the long ball with him. Hall just has one completion all season for over 40 yards. I don't know if that's just the way the coaching staff, how their playbook is sorted out, or if they just don't trust Hall's arm enough. But Notre Dame's been locking down the deep ball themselves, only allowing one pass of 40-plus yards so far for a touchdown. That was a slip-up in the UNC game. They got beat on an 80-yard touchdown, but didn't really matter in that game at that point. So I think, to me, if Notre Dame can keep that deep ball threat just entirely non-existent for BYU, keep it short, that's where I trust Notre Dame's defense the most. If they can keep it tight, snuff out anything long, and keep it short yardage game, I think they take down BYU here in Sin City. So I'm riding with the Irish on this one. I got your back here, Tom.
Appreciate it.
That is going to wrap up our show for the week. Thank you for joining us again. If you want to subscribe, we would be grateful. If you want to follow us, all our links are down in the description. Tom and Andy shows links are down in the description as well. Enjoy all the games, all the action this weekend, and we'll see everybody next week.